everybody. Welcome back to the Environmental Podcast. Aaron, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I just finished all my exams and most of my projects and essays, so I feel happy and a sense of inner peace.
Wow.
What about you?
I've been done for days and I've just been doing podcast things, working. I'm marking some exams, which is something I never thought I'd be doing, but fun.
Does that give you a sense of power when you do that? You said you were getting a red pen.
Yes, I'm going to have to go purchase a red pen, mainly because all of my other pens are out of ink.
End of semester problems.
Yeah. So, what's been your favorite end of semester project, Aaron?
Well, even though we were in different classes, we kind of wrote the same essay,
Yes,
which is kind of interesting. We both wrote an essay on materialism and the environment.
Yeah.
Mine was just because it was an environmental class, and yours was about...
Mine was a politics class, environmental politics though, so it was focused on how to implement anti-materialist. Mine was more about consumerism, but yeah, we wrote the same essay.
Yeah, mine was about degrowth.
Yeah, we thought they were both really kind of inspired by the podcast. We were going to give the podcast a shout out, but then we decided no, probably shouldn't do that.
An official APA citation for the podcast.
We decided against that.
Yeah, that's all done now. Freewheeling.
Yeah,
holiday
ready for
season.
the holidays.
And we're going to have to bank some episodes.
Yes.
Some podcast episodes.
So this is one of 3 in the next 3 days. It's going to be a marathon, but it'll be fun.
And today we are returning to our previously introduced segment called
Headline Hook.
And we'll insert the ukulele music right here. And we'll be going through the current news articles and we will be giving our thoughts on them.
Yeah, first we should make some predictions. Like, what do you think's going to be on the news? Cover page? Yeah.
I'm going to guess there's going to be something about Trump.
Yeah. My guess would be that thing about him and Greta fighting
the
on Twitter.
cyberbullying, the Twitter feuds. Yeah.
Between a 16-year-old and a 76-year-old. I don't know how old he is, but I mean...
72, I think 73 or something.
Okay, still. So I think that'll be there. Then there is that UK election. Was that their, official election, new prime minister?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boris Johnson got re-elected. I mean, elected because he wasn't really elected before by the people, just kind of was there.
Really?
And I'm sure we're going to sound really really expert when we talk about that.
Yeah, we probably are, because I mean...
And maybe there'll be some news about
the
movies.
Holidays.
Yeah.
Movies, yes.
Star Wars is coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's get right into it.
Cool. So, let's just stroll through this
Start us off
here.
with something interesting.
So this is an analysis, and it says, Alberta wants to flip the script. I can't read. Alberta wants to flip the script in oil patch's favor. It won't be easy. And then it says, Premier John Kennedy's $30 million energy war room is open for business.
Okay.
This is just on the front page, so it's not...
So this is Canadian-centered news?
Yes.
Okay. So Alberta is a province in Canada which is very oil-centric. We can say that.
Very reliant on oil for their economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the rest of Canada is trying to move towards a cleaner economy.
Yes. Oh, so they've been working on cutting spending on health and education to fund this war room. So that's...
What's the war room? What are they strategizing?
It doesn't say.
Okay. I mean, does this have something to do with Wexit? Or no?
Probably.
Wexit is the idea that the Western Canadian provinces, including Alberta and some other ones, are going to reject Canada's carbon tax and other such environmental policies, and they're just going to strike out on their own and seek sovereignty, right?
Yes.
Does this have anything to do with that?
It's more about what they're strategizing is how to combat the misinformation about their environmental performance as an oil industry.
Okay.
So I just think it's them trying to figure out how to save the industry when even the federal government is like, hey, I don't think we should be funding this anymore because it's gonna not be profitable very soon. So I think that's just what they're doing.
So they're saying, yes, we're an oil industry, but hold on, we're not big polluters. We're good. I don't know about that.
No, I don't think that's
But
true.
Maybe they are pioneering a new way of sustainable fossil fuel use.
You never know. Yeah.
No, that's an oxymoron.
On the same day that the war room was launched.
What is the war room?
It doesn't say. It literally doesn't say what it is.
Okay.
I figured it would. That's why I read the title.
I feel like we should move on.
But yes. So here's one. It says that UN climate talks end with limited progress on emissions targets. So basically at COP25, countries came together and they were discussing how can we achieve the Paris Agreement goals. And it says here that they reached a partial agreement that the countries must be more ambitious in order to fulfill the goals. I don't know what a partial target is, or a partial agreement.
It probably means that scientifically they said yes, but economically they said no.
Oh, yeah. And so, like, the main countries, they were probably like, no.
The bigger countries were probably saying, no, we're winning right now, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then the smaller ones that are going to be under water in a few years were like, hey, yes.
And also because the smaller ones don't have as much economic burden to be
true
environmental leaders.
You're right.
We took this class last year, remember?
Yeah, one where we simulated a Paris
like a UN
agreement,
COP meeting, and probably about 100 students in the class, and we each got assigned a country or a stakeholder. So some people were media or activists, and what were you?
I was Kenya.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't go. But how did it go?
It was...
Do you think it was realistic, let's say?
So I went into it and I was like, this is not going to be remotely realistic. These are all sustainability students. So everyone's going to be like a little bit, even if they're trying to like play the country, they're going to be a little bit more lenient. But even then, we didn't reach an agreement. There were 4 classes of like 2-hour discussions plus constant online discussions. And there were a ton of amendments to the Paris Accord. And in the end, we went to vote on ratifying it. It wasn't even close to 50-50. Like,
wow.
Yeah. So that's how it went.
It's obviously very different because it's very difficult because there's so many conflicting interests.
Yes.
And overlapping interests and things like that.
Yeah, and there's what's called veto states.
Yeah, so the big countries can just say no and stuff like that.
And they have to basically, the lowest common denominator, they have to meet that. So like if the United States says, no, we're not cutting our emissions by even 20%, then everybody has to come down to that target to get them on board. So it's very hard. I think they need to stop trying to amend the Paris Accord, which was in 2015. That's when it was written, so almost 5 years ago. They need a new one which has actual consequences.
Right, because that was basically just like a nice thing to say, but there were no it had no real stakes. I mean, there's environmental stakes, but it had no consequences for countries who would just say no. Yep. And most countries have just said no.
Yes. So the EU finally agreed that its long-term target is to reach net zero by 2050.
Net zero what?
Carbon emissions.
Okay.
But then experts say that more ambitious emissions cuts are needed. So like the EU can go zero by 2050, but like everybody, like the big emitters need to.
China and America.
Yeah, basically. So this was the longest debate ever, or the longest climate talks.
I mean, I don't really care how long the talks are, though. It's always going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Do we choose money right now, or do we choose sacrificing mostly our economies? Because right now, unfortunately, there's like a direct correlation. Like, the more you emit, probably the more money you'll make. That's how it is. So it should be about, and people aren't going to be willingly sacrificing profits, it seems, right?
Yeah.
Companies or countries. So I think it's more about reshaping economies to be, or to reward being environmentally friendly.
Yeah,
and that's what a carbon tax or a
cap and trade
system does. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the world news. So we have like all the countries listed, and then it just says space.
Okay, let's go to space.
So it says in space, this is what's going on. It says race against time to launch Europe's troubled mission to Mars. European Space Agency asks for help from NASA and ExoMars projects as trials fail and costs rise to £1 billion. So they're just trying to fix. Oh, so there's a robot up on Mars, but there's some issues that are happening with it. The parachutes are going and so on. So they're trying to fix it before the battery runs out or something like that. That's a lot of money to put into a Mars robot, but what do you think of space exploration?
We talked about this in the last Headline Hook episode.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we just kind of gave a surface level. I said space exploration is cool. You said, no, the money should be put elsewhere.
Yeah.
Is there anything, I mean, that little Mars robot, I like that guy. What's his name?
The Mars rover?
No, I think that's the old one.
I
think the new one has a name.
It doesn't say. Anyway, that's that. So if you have some money to donate to the Mars robot,
To the
send it their way.
unnamed Mars robot.
Give now. Yeah, it really needs your help. Oh, here's some things about Greta. We were saying, thought there'd be some things about her on here. The headline is, Greta Thunberg apologizes for put leaders against the wall comment.
Did you hear this?
I didn't.
She said we need to put leaders and politicians against the wall. And then her apology was, this is what happens when you improvise speeches in a second language. And apparently it's a common saying in Swedish,
Yeah.
wherever she's from.
Yeah, she's Swedish.
Like she didn't realize in English it sounds like you're advocating like executions or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you speak a different language, there's a ton of sayings that are different.
If someone said that to me, I'd be like, okay, put him against the wall.
Dear.
It doesn't sound that violent.
No, it doesn't.
It just kind of means have them face their consequences,
Yeah.
the repercussions of their
Yeah,
inaction.
She's saying like world leaders are still trying to run away from their responsibilities, but we have to make sure they cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went on to say, we will make sure that we put them against the wall.
Violent revolutionary Greta Thunberg.
Definitely isn't violent in the slightest. Yeah, then she tweeted some clarification with the actual Swedish saying. Then she apologized, which I mean is fair. Somebody might have been offended by that.
Yeah, it's really a non-issue.
And she was Time's
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
the youngest ever person of the year. Very cool.
I didn't really like that cover they chose. I thought it looked really kind of like a bad image. I know it wasn't photoshopped, but it looked kind of photoshopped.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that good. And the pictures of the year are usually just a picture of the person, right?
Yeah.
This one was, I mean, I know she's more about the environment, so that's why there was more nature in the picture, but I just didn't think it was a great image.
No, that isn't fantastic.
But what do you think about that pic?
I think it's nice. It's kind of, it's really focusing not on the person, which I don't think she would want. It's
Yeah, they usually don't. Like last year it was like Me Too or something.
Yeah.
So it's usually more about the movement.
Cool.
And then we know someone took issue with the choice.
Somebody wanted to be Times Person of the Year, but they didn't get chosen.
Yeah, Trump. Did you see his party or his people? They photoshopped a picture of his face on her body on that image.
No.
It's very strange, but I mean that sounds just as juvenile and petty as you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what's the person of the year really? It's just supposed to be about whoever made the news most, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
So for me, it's a toss-up between him and her, and he already won it. So
He won Person of the Year?
yeah, I wouldn't say won because it's not really an award, but he was chosen as person of the year one year. Yeah,
Wow.
I think it was a couple of years ago. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess he was the most talked about. I thought it was somebody who was like doing good, not
No.
just the most.
It's just the most talked about because they've chosen like dictators, and Hitler was the person of the year at that time, wasn't he?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I'm happy to see.
It's not best person of the year.
I was just person.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'm really impressed that it's somebody so young. I'm just very impressed by her all around, though. And then there was some kind of a Twitter feud between her and Trump. He said something along the lines of, you should be more chillaxed.
Yeah, people, I think that's the right's
like...
favorite, that's what they say now about, or that's what, should I say, people who aren't really into the environment will say is like, oh, all these kids, are just fear-mongering and they're living really stressed lives and I won't live my life in fear and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I keep seeing people posting, they're like, we need to stop speaking in this apocalyptic tone, you're scaring the kids, and I'm like...
It's hilarious because that's exactly how people on the right always talk about
everything.
Things like lawlessness and, the just state of society, but then people start speaking in a science-based way and it's like, whoa.
Whoa, this is actually going to scare people. It's like, yeah, it should, because...
But I think it's...
Oh my.
I mean, it's obviously based in climate denial, but climate change denial.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's a certain kind of resentment and like really personal opposition that a lot of people have towards Greta for some reason. Well, why do you think that is?
Because I feel like she's threatening. She's kind of embodies a lot of the things that for years people have just kind of not wanted to become powerful.
I mean,
women,
I think it's because she
children.
Just says the things, whereas people are used to environmentalists beating around the bush a lot.
Yeah.
She's like, no, politicians. You're going to be held against the wall.
Yeah.
And also I think because she's female and a lot of people don't like seeing female activists.
No.
Even really young ones.
Yeah. So that's what I think. People are just afraid. They're like, oh, if she becomes person of the year. What's next?
What's next?
Oh my.
What's next? We have to reduce our emissions?
I saw this one earlier. It says, boy gets prosthetic arm that lets him hug his brother.
I don't
Sweet.
know. Where is this?
It's in Wales.
I mean, what news outlet is this?
BBC.
It sounds kind of like BuzzFeed.
Yeah. But it's the front page of the tech, so it must be like a new type of prosthetic arm.
Cool.
That's still really sweet. Ooh, in the tech tent it says, was it a Facebook election? And this is in regards to the UK election, which we mentioned in the opening again. What does a tech election or a Facebook election mean?
They probably mean, did Facebook sway this election as it did the 2016 US election?
Yeah, it's saying, did targeted adverts work?
I mean, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I don't have to look into it. Yes, advertising works.
That's what it is.
For good
Always
and for
has.
bad.
Yeah. It says we know that ads really help with visibility, setting the agenda, bringing a particular topic more into the conversation. Even if it's bad, if people like see it all the time, they'll just go with it. That's how propaganda works. So I'm going to say yes, it was a Facebook election. What do you say, Aaron?
I think it was maybe more a Tumblr election. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
I feel like they're always left out of the conversation, so I'm going to shout them out right now. Tumblr election.
Okay, Tumblr election. Ooh, this says, you're always interested about the YouTube comments.
I love YouTube comments.
So this says YouTube bans malicious insults and veiled threats.
What do you mean?
They ban them.
No way. That's the heart of YouTube.
Oh, wait. YouTube will no longer allow videos that maliciously insult someone based on protected attributes such as race, gender, identity, or sexuality.
Right, so it's basically talking about YouTube taking away hate speech.
Which is good.
I saw Canada was is tossing that kind of legislature around that any kind of social media here has to remove hate speech within 24 hours or they get fined or something like that.
That's fair.
I don't know.
They have the money to monitor it, I think. I know that there's like millions and billions of posts.
It's this big question about the size of the tech companies and whether they should be, whether the government should be able to monitor and regulate what kind of opinions are expressed on them.
Yeah, because if something's so big, it's kind of, I feel like it would be hard to monitor. It'd be like saying the internet starts monitoring hate speech and just everything that gets put up has to be taken down. I don't know. I don't think it should be out there for people to read because, as we were saying, like, people will read something and use it to justify their own beliefs.
Yeah.
But...
And it radicalizes, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like...
My question is, what's hate speech? Because you could have something which is really overtly hateful against a certain creed of people or something like that. Or you could have a strange little internet subculture which is sharing memes that allude to the same kind of sentiments, but from the outside look kind of innocuous.
Yeah, that's true. I mean?
But those would still be allowed.
Because they're not overt.
Yeah.
In the case of YouTube, I feel like that probably is the best place to start with stopping this kind of thing.
YouTube is so hateful. So strangely hateful.
It is.
More so than any other social media. And that's saying something. I think it's because the YouTube algorithm and watching videos by certain types of people is how people get into those kind of thoughts. Yeah,
because you just watch one and even it could be just to check it out, be like, oh, what are these crazy people saying?
And then you just get recommended it all the time and way more extreme versions of what you watch. So YouTube definitely doesn't help with that.
No, so I mean, this is probably a good thing.
Slightly off topic, but it reminds me of this quote I read because there's a big problem. I mean, just like on every other website, a social media website, on Reddit, there are subreddits which kind of pop up, which are kind of hateful and, be it they like literally just like Nazi subreddits or stuff like that. And then periodically Reddit will like go through and just ban them or quarantine them or, just take them off. But there's this quote, it was like, if you have a jar of spiders in the kitchen and you just break the jar, the spiders just go all over the place. You're not actually doing anything. So that's not really, it's not like criticizing the action by social media websites or YouTube banning the speech or Reddit banning those kind of subreddits. But it's just kind of asking the question, like, how much good is it actually doing? Isn't it just relocating the sentiments?
Yeah, that's fair. In a way,
like they just go somewhere else is what I mean. Yeah,
in a way, if they were like contained and just talking to each other, then it's like they're not really hurting anybody.
I mean, that's still not good.
No, it's not good. But I don't know.
It's just a big worry. Like none of it actually addresses the problem. It just basically takes it away from, puts it out of sight. Which is still a little bit good
I
because
think
it
it's still
stops it from
good.
radicalizing more people.
Yeah, for sure.
And it means I don't have to see it. But it's like, is
Yeah.
it really that good?
It's hard to say. I feel like it definitely is doing no harm. It's not making anything worse, I don't think. Anyway, do you know what I found out?
What?
Free speech isn't actually a right in Canada. I thought that was interesting.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not in our constitution. Like, it's in the American Constitution, like, freedom of speech, but it's not in Canada. Like, they're allowed to censor whatever.
Who?
The government.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How did you learn this?
My friend who's in law mentioned it because he was going through Facebook and he's like, these people are all on here, like, getting mad about censorship and stuff, but it's not actually a right. Like, it's not a constitutional right. And there's something similar to it. It's like freedom to express. We have freedom to express your identity, religion, etc. But it's not like speech. So, like, you can't
just say evil things without consequence.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, the reason people get worried about that is because the government decides what's, like, the definition of hate speech changes over time.
That's true.
So people who are saying, you know, a lot of the times the people who are pushing for free speech are just worried that regular speech or things will get incredibly more and more sterilized in discussion and what's allowed, what people are allowed to say.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I don't like when people use it against hateful, because I know it's like there's some things that are just like morally wrong and like pretty widely like that negative.
Yeah, of course there's an accepted moral thing, but people pushing for free speech will be like, yeah, but that spectrum changes over time.
It does.
So if, you know, more and more things, you know, political correctness and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So here's another article. It says emotion detecting tech should be restricted by law.
Emotion detecting technology?
Yeah.
So it can read if you're happy or sad?
Yeah. So I think that would be dangerous for marketing if like your phones had this in it, because like they have the front camera, so I feel like that would be dangerous for...
It basically means that as well as knowing always where we are and what we're doing, governments will know how we feel, and big corporations, which I think effectively when it comes to surveillance and privacy, there's no difference between governments and like tech corporations.
If anything, I feel like corporations are worse because they're the ones that are like selling you things and making you, I don't know. Yes. What does it say?
Sounds kind of dystopian.
It says that the field of like effect recognition systems is built on a markedly shaky foundation. So I think it's like...
so it's not very good technology.
No.
Do you think like Face ID in smartphones is so that the government can collect more data, like facial recognition stuff?
I don't know. I never really look into those types of...
I mean, you don't really have to. It's just a conspiracy. What do you think? Yes or no?
Yes or no? I don't think so.
I think it probably is.
Oh, okay.
Just like I think the fingerprint stuff probably is as well.
Fingerprint stuff does kind of make sense. So I always wondered, well, I guess I know how it works, but it's like when somebody like, they're on the scene and they're like trying to like match people's fingerprints. It's like, how do you have their fingerprints in the first place? And I think it's just, I feel like when you're born, you get your fingerprints taken or something.
I thought it was just people who were already in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, it could be that as well. But now they have everybody's from their phones.
Yeah. What do you think about like invasions of privacy like that and the increasing collection of data in the name of security, national security?
In the name of security, I think it's okay. Security is the one thing that is like, I think the government
can do what they want.
They can, and I think they're best equipped to do it. Because like that's one thing that I just like have no idea about. There are some things that it's like I don't know if the government's the best equipped to do that.
What about in China where they have like a credit rating system of all the citizens?
What?
Yeah, they have like look that up. So as well as like facial recognition and tracking people as to where they travel and when they travel there.
Yeah.
China has like this credit rating system which is visible to everyone else, like how good you are economically, I guess.
It says it's being developed.
Yeah.
So it's not like implemented, or maybe it is partially implemented. Interesting. Seems like a capitalist dystopia.
A communist dystopia even.
I know that they're communist, but this seems like something that would be in a capitalist, like
authoritarian.
Authoritarian, yes.
Also, what was that thing you were telling me about North Korea yesterday?
Oh,
it seems like a pretty good headline.
Yeah, it's not in here. I just saw it. It said North Korea told the United States that they have a Christmas present coming, and they're testing long-range missiles.
How did they tell them?
I don't know how they
Did he tweet it? Kim Jong-un?
Does he tweet?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I just saw the headline and I was
So it was basically a threat.
It was a threat. And it was basically, if America doesn't lift the economic sanctions on North Korea, then
Goodbye, America.
yes. And then I was kind of like freaked out because I was like, we're right next to America. Then you mentioned their military power is pretty.
Yeah, and it's not just America. Like, I feel like if North Korea, not to downplay their danger, because they're such a wild card, and Kim Jong-un, it wouldn't really be a rational choice, which is the worry about them having nuclear weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if anything like that ever happened, they would be very quickly
invaded.
Yeah, the retaliation would be very strong and immediate.
Yeah.
Not just by America, but by all America's allies, which is like everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
not to downplay the worries though, because North Korea, it doesn't. I feel like a government which doesn't think or act logically is the most dangerous kind, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. It just, to me, the fact that was a headline and isn't like, I don't know, it was weird to me that I didn't hear about it.
Are you sure it's not a joke?
Like it could be.
You should look it up, because it's not in any of the news sites today.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how quickly things turn over.
But just talking about North Korea, like, people are always very critical about Trump's treatment of them and stuff like that, like, Twitter feuds with two kind of wild card world leaders. But from my perspective, Trump was elected into a lose-lose situation with North Korea, where they had already been, for some reason, allowed to develop way beyond what they should have. And for some reason, no previous presidents of America or other countries have stepped in and just said no, which they should have. It seems to me it should have happened a while ago.
Yeah, I think it should have been stopped. Wasn't there an agreement after World War II to stop nuclear technology development?
I don't know, but since then, a lot of other countries have gotten it.
Yeah. No, this is an article from a few hours ago, and it says, from CNN, and it says that North Korea they set a year-end deadline for America to make a decision to lift the sanction.
Crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, guess we'll see. I don't think there'll be anything.
Let's hope not.
Happen, but it's just to me, the fact that this was even a headline, this would freak people out so much.
The world's gone crazy.
Yeah, and it's not even on the front page. This is insane to me. This is the kind of things that when I was little, I would if I heard this, I would have just not leave my room for months. I'd be like, well.
For months.
Yep, wouldn't leave it.
That's why you're so pale.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Any more positive or interesting headlines than that?
Let's see.
Anything on entertainment, news and entertainment?
Entertainment news? Here we have Taylor Swift blasts toxic male privilege in music.
Okay. Taylor Swift is an often outspoken critic of various issues inside the music industry.
Yes.
Such as artists not really getting paid for streaming or anything like that. Oh, and also about artists or most pop musicians not owning their music, something like that.
Yeah, because she's currently, her label got acquired by Scooter Braun, the guy who found Justin Bieber, and he won't let her sing her old songs or perform them.
Crazy.
So
we're never going to hear a T-Swift live rendition of...
Why can't I think of any of her songs?
Speak Now.
Or...
Such classics as...
I'm going to look up a list so we can...
No.
Anyway, we're not going to be able to hear any of Taylor Swift classics anymore unless she wins this battle with Scooter.
T-Swift versus Scooter B.
Yeah, so she's saying, this is what this article's about. It seems like the pressure could have crushed us, made us into diamonds instead. This is her speaking on all of the women such as Billie Eilish, Lana Del Rey, Lizzo, who have taken the challenge of rising to the top of the music industry. They've accepted the challenge, and now they're becoming diamonds. That's awesome.
But what's...
I don't...
I thought it'd be systemic sexism inside the music industry, or no? It's just her saying congrats to all these successful women?
She's saying that often female artists are not consulted when there's acquisitions like this one.
Okay.
Or they're not consulted when their music is sold to Apple to be streamed. It just kind of happens. And I don't know if this is exclusively female. I feel like that could happen to any artist, but she's speaking on behalf of women. And she says this is happening often. People like Scooter, there's just a lot of the owners of the record labels are male. So there's a bit of a power imbalance there.
Yeah. No, I mean...
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of change happening like there is in Hollywood, and that's good. There's definitely some double standards.
I think so.
I was listening and watching to Taylor Swift's NPR Tiny Desk concert on YouTube a while ago.
Okay.
And she mentioned something like if she had been male, or she had a song, it was like, I think she had a song, it was either on a new album or an old one, and it was just listing the things that, had she been male, would have been said differently about her since she rose to prominence.
Yes.
And I agreed with most of them. I mean, definitely, I think someone like her, as successful as she is, and whatever you think about her music, she's very talented.
Yeah.
The kind of common categorization of her would be different had she been male.
Yeah.
Probably, and stuff like that. Things like her relationships.
Yeah, that's what this says. This is women in music on stage or behind the scenes are not allowed to coast. We are held at a higher, sometimes impossible feeling standard. And it seems that many of her fellow female artists have felt the same way.
I think that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Good for T Swift.
Good for Taylor. I always wonder why a lot of artists always have that edgy stage. I'm glad Taylor's out of it.
Yeah, I don't know about that edgy stuff.
Bit of a dark time.
That one seemed kind of inauthentic to me.
Yeah, because I see what she was going for, but I think she.
What's your favorite
didn't
Taylor Swift song?
I was having a hard time remembering them, but Speak Now was one of my favorites. We have Our Song.
I saw you on the radio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like that. I don't know any of her new ones. She has one with what's that guy's name?
Are we moving on, or are we turning this into a music episode?
Just let me look, because I want to see.
Okay.
A love story. That's what I was trying to.
How does that one go?
It's a love story, baby. Just say yes. Do, 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 do. You Belong With Me.
Okay.
The Fearless album is the best one. Gonna be getting into Taylor Swift in the new year.
No, we're actually gonna turn the whole podcast into a Taylor Swift fan podcast, and each week we're gonna analyze a different song lyrically and sonically.
Yeah, Time Crisis, but Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Taylor Crisis. I feel like that's really all, because a lot of these
Rhyme crisis.
There we go.
Let's talk about movie news.
Movie news.
Since we're on the entertainment.
Okay.
You can just type that in, maybe.
Yes.
In the meanwhile, I will describe what's been happening with Martin Scorsese, old guard, famous American director, and his current feud with the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the economic box office juggernaut, which kind of dominates each year and has kind of propelled Disney to a record $6 billion box office this year. I think it was 6 or 10.
It was a lot.
A lot of money. So Scorsese has recently been on the press tour for The Irishman, and he was asked about his opinions on Marvel movies, and he said something along the lines of, they're not real cinema.
Yes.
And he faced some backlash for that, and he was kind of kept being asked on it, and he said, well, those things are just so corporate made, and
he felt they were inauthentic.
Yeah, because they were so made by committee is what he said.
Yeah, so it's like no matter what director's on the film, they're so meticulously
there aren't that many artistic choices made.
Yeah.
I agree with him. And then the CEO of Disney's like, hey Martin, let's have a meeting, let's have a talk.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's going to be some kind of proposal that he will sign on to direct one of the movies. I'm making that prediction right now. And it'll be a lot of money involved, so he might not say no.
Yeah, you never know.
They might say, hey, you can have complete creative freedom.
Yeah.
On the new Spider-Man movie.
I don't know if Spider-Man's even in the MCU anymore. It's so back and forth.
Je ne sais pas.
He said cinema was about revelation, aesthetic, emotional, and spiritual revelation. It was about characters, the complexity of people and their contradictory and sometimes paradoxical natures, the way they can hurt one another and love one another and suddenly come face to face with themselves. And I feel like that's not what MCU movies are about.
No, but I'll play devil's advocate. Mr. Scorsese, has popular movies, have they always been like that?
Yes, they've always been just...
We watched a movie called On the Town last night, and that is a 50s musical set in New York, and it's just, I wouldn't say it had much about
personal
or spiritual revelations.
Yes.
I don't know. There's always been just fun blockbuster movies.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what the MCU is. It just kind of...
I like some of the movies.
Yeah, they're fun.
I think some of the problem is that they have such a large influence because they have like so many people going to see them each time and there's so much money put into them, and they're really cultural moments, but they don't really bother to say anything usually. if a movie like that came out and it was about something really timely and important, I think it would be much better for the industry.
Yeah.
And a much better use of their resources as well. But
yeah.
Disney's profit first, so.
Yep. And the amount of money they put into movies, it's like they can't really risk something not doing well.
Yeah, but the thing is, they have a guaranteed $1 billion
right.
every time, so they might as well make it interesting.
Yeah, true. I think what he's probably getting at is he's probably a bit mad about what we were mad about, that there are fantastic movies being made.
Oh, that don't get
as much.
Not
getting any hype.
Exposure, yeah.
They're not allowed to be played because the new Star Wars is coming out on Christmas or whatever. So I think that's probably, like, it's not what he said.
Makes sense, but then again, this is a guy who just made a huge movie with Netflix, so
yeah.
I don't know if he can really be talking about this.
No.
Netflix does a lot of good in terms of making smaller movies visible.
Yeah, I think that's...
So, I don't know, the conversation is just more nuanced than a lot of old guard directors are painting it to be.
So, I think that's all for this week's episode. Aaron, where can they find us?
We have a new episode every Monday. Yeah, the Environmental Podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And we're on Instagram at _environmental, where we post some art we like, some nature pictures, some behind-the-scenes stuff.
Some pictures of us now.
Yeah.
Made our Instagram debut this week, which is exciting. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Come back next week.
Have a good one.